Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had any dreams with you in them lately, Adero. I sometimes have dreams. Well, I often have dreams, but occasionally I'll have dreams about the people I'm interviewing. No, I don't know. Do I know any funny stories about you?
You guys
No.
worked together?
We did.
Yeah.
In fact, Adero ended up having the same office that I had, including some of the things I left behind.
Yeah, then Lisa took it over at some point.
Did she take over with the IKEA furniture in it too? Because I left quite a few IKEA pieces in
You
there.
did. I still have those.
Do you really?
I have
Good.
them. They're in my downstairs.
Okay.
Um,
I had no space for them.
yeah, there's two chairs and I have the two chairs.
Welcome back to So Let's Talk Columbus. I'm Michael Wilkos, Vice President of Community Engagement at United Way of Central Ohio. I love back to school season. New backpack, new pencils, the first day energy. There's nothing quite like it. And honestly, I still get a little excited about back to school. And it's been a few decades since anyone sent me a supply list. But what a lot of people don't realize is that for many kids in Columbus, getting through that door is the hard part. 1 in 4 students in Ohio is chronically absent, missing 18 or more days a year. And when you dig into why, it's almost never what you'd assume. It's not that nobody cares. More often than not, it's a family that's stretched so thin that getting a kid to school every single day is one of 10 possible things they're trying to do before noon. It's a teenager who stayed home to look after a younger sibling because there was no one else. It's a child who is quietly struggling with anxiety in a world that has gotten a lot harder to grow up in. The good news is that this city doesn't just shake its head and move on, and nobody embodies that more than today's guest. Adero Robinson is the CEO of Communities in Schools. They've been showing up for students since 1993, placing caring adults directly inside school buildings whose entire job it is to build relationships and connect kids and families to what they need. Last year alone, they served more than 24,000 students across 52 schools. And Adero has nearly 30 years in this work, a huge heart, and the kind of optimism you can only earn by watching kids turn things around every single day. It is the perfect time of year to have this conversation. Adero, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the work, tell us a little bit about you. It's been nearly 30 years in nonprofit leadership. That's not a career, that's a calling. So what's your story?
Well, this marks 31 years. Actually, 31 years. I started right out of college. It's the only job I've ever done in terms of nonprofits. And I got into it by accident. It wasn't something that I thought about in undergrad. It happened. My dad got me connected to AmeriCorps right out of college. So City Year was my connection. And I did a lot of work in schools and with young people. And I said, I love this type of work. So I continued it, got a chance to work with some amazing organizations, culminating here at CIS.
And what schools were you in when you were in City Year?
At that time, this is mid-90s, so I worked at the old 2nd Avenue Elementary School.
Oh, yeah.
In the Short North, which was
Junior Achievement?
Junior Achievement's there now. It was a much different neighborhood back then. The Short North was a lot different, and the community was a lot different. But I worked in a 5th grade classroom, and during my service year, I worked in a school, and then we worked in a lot of other partnerships with like churches and other nonprofits that service that community at the time.
So beyond your work career, what's something people would be surprised to learn about you outside of your work?
That I love the sport of basketball. I was a coach for quite a bit of time, and I'm a martial artist. Those who are close to me know that I am a martial artist. So I have a couple of black belts. And,
I did not know this.
Yes. So I've been doing it for quite a long time. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite basketball team?
College, Ohio State.
Okay.
NBA.
Good answer.
NBA San Antonio.
All right.
Yeah, those are my 2 favorites.
So you clearly love Columbus. You've been here a long time. What do you love about this city and that doesn't make it into the headlines?
So I grew up in the Driving Park neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So South Side, Fairwood, and Livingston. And my parents still live there in the same house.
Wow.
Yeah. So
how long have they been in the house?
Since late 70s. So I think we moved to that. I think I was 6 or 7, so about 47 years, 47,
Yeah.
48 years. Yeah. So I love the city. I've seen it grow. You've seen this as much as you talk about how much the city has grown. I've got a chance to see it grow significantly over the past, 20, 25 years. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna stay here.
What side of town do you live in?
Far East Side.
Okay.
So I'm in the Reynoldsburg area.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have seen their house go up quite a bit in value recently.
The whole neighborhood. Some of the houses across the street where I grew up, they weren't owner occupied, and there were some things that were happening in some of those other homes that are now $300,000-$400,000 that back then not even close to that
Not
value.
even 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So we're seeing a lot of development in those areas.
Yeah, things change fast.
And we're still getting calls. My dad's not going anywhere. People calling to ask, "Hey, you want to buy your house and we'll purchase your home?" He's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere."
Well, gotta hope they can stay put as long as they'd like.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have heard about communities and schools. What
Yeah.
they may not know is what you actually do in a school.
Sure.
Would you walk us through that? What does it look like when CIS shows up?
So communities and schools, we're part of a national organization that's been around since like the late 70s. So we are the Ohio affiliate. And this affiliate started in 1993, and it was Central Ohio at first. And we have expanded to an Ohio-based organization. Currently, we're in 6 cities across the state.
Okay.
So it includes Cleveland, Toledo, Youngstown, Dayton, Central Ohio, and down in the Cincinnati area. So we work in public and charter schools, grades K through 12. And we facilitate full-time integrated support services, or ISS, in schools where we have full-time site coordinators who are providing this framework or this model of, I call them a 3-tiered layer of services. So if you think about it, if you were to visualize an inverted triangle of whole school supports and then funneling down to individualized student supports. So whole school, more targeted supports for small groups, depending on what the need is in that particular school, down to individualized student supports. And those supports would range from academic, attendance, which is our main initiative that we work on, social emotional behavior type work. Then you would think about all the other barriers that you talked about earlier in your opening as it relates to some of the challenges that students may be having in their school experience. So not only in school, but out of school as well. So how it operates in a school is our site coordinator, when we partner with the school, we will conduct an assessment of what the school needs and how the site coordinator can be that additional resource for all the students. And it can be around attendance, it can be around a myriad of things based off of that individual school. And then it'll funnel down to understanding what certain students are needing specifically. And that's where we capture a lot of our data as it relates to those different tiers of support. So it could be academic goals, it could be attendance, it could be figuring out what's going on at home. Maybe it's something related to housing or transportation or some other basic needs that the site coordinator can be focused on in helping that student or group of students. Mm-hmm.
So the site coordinator model is the heart of everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these people? What does their day look like? And what makes that consistent adult presence so powerful for a kid?
So our our national motto is relationships matter and being present matters. So a lot of it is around consistency of building relationships with students for those supports that they need. So the site coordinator, what a day could look different in any school based off of what that relationship with that school is. So it could be helping, and maybe it's an elementary school, maybe it's helping with students as they're getting off the bus. There's a work as it relates to if I'm looking at what some academic challenges are. Maybe there are some students that I'm helping with as they're maybe challenged with some academic goals. Or if they're not coming to school consistently, what is going on? And how am I creating, as a site coordinator, how am I creating initiatives and opportunities to be able to provide services to that young person? I'll give you a really good example. So here in Central Ohio, we work with Southwestern City Schools. And we have a position, a housing stabilization coordinator. He works specifically with all the schools that we partner with, but also with the district. So that's a symbiotic relationship. that addresses some of the transient challenges that many of the students in that particular part of the city is dealing with, which is something I didn't realize, that housing stabilization insecurity is a challenge in that part where all those schools are. So then you're thinking about all the basic needs that maybe aren't necessarily something that the school is handling, but what may be happening outside. And this particular position, working with the site coordinators in their respective schools and the district, coordinate to help understand what those things look like. And one of the pieces that they did was they did a really cool resource closet that was in partnership with IKEA, right? To help build the shelving and bring all of these resources in, the PTA, local PTA, another group that helps sort everything so that it's a really comprehensive, holistic resource for students and their families. That's the other key piece. We want to make sure it's part of that work. So it can look different from day to day.
Well, thank you for the housing stabilization work. I know that part of the county actually has the far west side has the highest eviction filings of anywhere right now in the county. So, and
a lot of that is you're seeing how that impacts student success and the students being able to come to school consistently, talking about that attendance issue.
Yeah. So what about your life? When you were growing up, did you have someone who showed up for you the way your site coordinator showed up for kids today?
Absolutely. So I had, of course, my parents, but I grew up going to the Boys Club, back when it was called the Boys Club. It's Boys and Girls now. The Salesian Boys Club, I spent a lot of time down there. So I had a lot of coaches, a lot of youth leaders, the rec centers that I grew up in, driving parks to be specific, and others, and all the different activities. There was always some adults or older folks that were connected to the young people in my community. And I had a lot of those role models growing up as well.
Yeah, good for you. Mm-hmm. So CIS has been doing this in Ohio since '93. Yes. You're in 52 schools in 6 Ohio cities. What does it take to earn the trust of a school district enough that they let you put your people inside their school buildings?
That's a great question. Well, it goes back to the relationships and the tried and true efficacy of our model and the return on investment. So I think any school district or any school building that we partner with, we have to build strong relationships with them to show that we are having an impact on their student. So if you were to look at our website and look at some of our data, you can see the growth of how that relationship is built and how we have impacts on those students. And so the school leadership, principals, administrators, teachers, they can see how that site coordinator isn't just a vendor coming in and doing these services on, every now and then you might see them in the building. They are a part of that culture. So you're trusting that anytime you're working with a student, that it's going to provide impact for the whole culture of the school, whether it's attendance or academics, those types of things. So having that type of trust over time and building those relationships at all different levels of a school district are key for us being good partners. Yeah.
So give me a story about a kid, an example of a kid whose story and the work that this was actually about. Is there one that sticks out for you?
Absolutely. So I'm going to use a name.
Sure. A made-up name?
Made-up name. So
Adero Jr.?
Adero Jr. So we'll just say Adero Jr. So this was in one of our schools. I think it was in the Southwestern City School, middle school student. Adero Jr., 7th grader, at this time had missed over 32 days of school for a myriad of reasons. 32, 33 days of school.
Over what period of time?
Over like the first 6 months of school, 5 or 6 months, 32 days, with a GPA of, if I remember the data, 0.88 to be specific, of a GPA. Now, after having more consistent work, bringing that student onto the site coordinator's caseload, she was able to understand what was going on, put together a plan for this young person, and then be able to see what other resources could be available for why the student was missing all these days, why they weren't doing their homework, why they were getting in trouble. Some of the reasons were behavior, not being able to school because you're getting suspended. Other reasons were couldn't get to school. There were things happening at home. By the time this young person got to their 8th grade year, their GPA went up to over 3.2, and they had only missed 8 days of school.
That's great.
So that's a really good example of how the site coordinator really dove into the student's life, worked with the parents, worked with the teachers, and utilizing data to be able to see those gains, right? In terms of just coming to school, that's the first thing.
Yep.
Figuring out what's going on, and then we'll address the other issues based off of the model that they facilitate.
So let's talk about the absenteeism problem. 1 in 4 Ohio students is chronically absent.
25%, yes.
When you say that out loud to people, what's the reaction that you usually get, and how does it differ from the reality you see every day?
A lot of people want to understand why students aren't showing up. What are some of the reasons? Why is it is it that they're younger and is it the parents? Is it they don't like school? Is it they're getting in trouble? Are they sick? What are some of the reasons? And it could vary. There's not one specific reason why students aren't coming to school consistently. It could be a lot of and when I get a chance to go out to schools and I actually talk to some of these students, you'd be amazed at what a young person will tell you once you show some interest in what's going on with them. And so it would vary. And I think people will be surprised to learn that what they assume is going on is not necessarily what's happening in the day-to-day life of a young person. A kindergartner, it may look different because it may be on the parent to get that person to school, or kindergarten through fourth or fifth grade. But as you get older, it may look a little different. It could be a transportation issue. It could be lack of engagement. It could be a behavior issue. It could be something going on. Speaking of stories, there was one about a young woman. She was a little old, a young girl. She was, I think, an 8th grader. Her father had died. And so she became completely disengaged from school. So she just stopped coming because she wasn't doing her work. And there was the domino effect of all of the things, mental health, her physical health, and things of that nature. So having that site coordinator who was a female, and there was a connection there, and then being able to understand, okay, let's figure out how do we get you and your family opportunities and services so that as you're dealing with this grief, how do we get you to come back to school more consistently? That type of thing. So it could vary on why students aren't coming. Yeah.
So just kind of listening to you, it sounds like why a child misses school is kind of like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Walk us through that process when a site coordinator is interacting with a young person. What are they listening for? Like, what are some of the clues that they're going to get from a child of why they're missing school?
So that's where the relationships are very, very important. So some things they're listening for. I'll give you an example. I was at one of the schools, and there were 2 middle schoolers happened to be in the same space with the site coordinator. And I was asking them the same type of question. What are some of the reasons why one young man he just came off suspension for fighting. Another young woman came off suspension for vaping or got caught with a vape pen. It's not mine. Well, okay.
You're right.
Yeah. So middle schoolers they're interesting. Funny too. But the conversations on, well, why are you fighting? What are some of the stimulus? What's the stimuli for why you're fighting? In this particular case, what can we do to impact that? So for this young man, it was understanding that he was having beef with another student in the school. And it was always in the hallway in the change between classes. So when he was talking with the site coordinator, they figured out, well, if you're constantly getting in a fight with this 1 or 2 people in the school, when you're changing classes, what can we do differently? It was something very simple, as he said, and he said this to me, now I just go up another stairway and I avoid this person. I may be a couple more minutes late to class, but now I'm not seeing them every day. I don't see them at all. And it was only during that time. And it would snowball. And it had an impact outside of school. So if I'm see you in the hallway and we have beef,
right,
it's going to escalate, and then it'll compound, and then it'll happen after school or outside of school. He said, I just went up the other stairway. That's 2 minutes down the hall. I don't have that issue during the school day anymore. and hopefully I won't get suspended again. Something like that. I was like, oh, I never would have. And he came up with himself after talking with that particular site coordinator in that middle school. And I was like, oh, okay.
Simple solution
That he came up with after figuring out what could you have done different, young man. And I'll give you another example, another one of our middle schools. And there's actually a video of this that we have of this young person's testimony. There was a bunch of young men at the school who were always getting in trouble. They were the troublemakers in the school. Everybody knew they were fighting, being disrespectful. Site coordinator was like, look, we're going to end this. We're going to figure out how to end this because everyone knows that you are all just causing problems. You're very blunt with them. Okay, you got that out of your system. Now let's figure out a better way for you not to be involved with this type of behavior because you're going to get suspended. You're going to get us, and it's going to follow you when you get to 9th grade, 10th grade.
Yeah.
One of the ringleaders or one of the main leaders in this piece, his father had passed away. And that was somewhat, he was acting out because of that. So, that's peeling back the onion, peeling back the layers, impacting this young man's attendance, impacting his academics, disruption in class, fighting, conflict. So he said, okay, now I'm going to get these, just about 8 kids. Now we're going to take all these things that you're doing. You are the leaders in the school, but in a negative way. Let's flip that. How can you be leaders in the school in a positive way? And the young person, when he talks about it in the video, he says, that's one of the things I wanted to do more of, and be positive. And I don't want to get in fights every day, but it's just something we were doing.
Right.
But it impacted all of these other pieces. And when the principal, when she shared her perspective on it, having that additional adult, another black male in the school, working with these young black males, they saw their incidents of behavior issues go from here to here.
Yeah.
Because of different ways in the culture of the school and those types of things. And that's where the relationship and the partnership really, once the trust happens and you're starting to see these things, that's where the benefit comes in.
You know, a lot on the show when we're talking with professionals like yourself in the education space, mental health keeps coming up and everything related to kids right now.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Anxiety, depression, the impact of social media, the long tail of COVID. How has that changed the nature of what you're dealing with in schools, and how has your organization had to adapt?
That's a great question. Having the connection with the site coordinators and listening to their stories and their impact stories, listening to what the mental health challenges that they're having with their specific students, that is eye-opening because it could be a lot of those different things from depression, anxiety, things going on at home, just growing up as a middle schooler going into high school, those things that we went through, but it's compounded more by all of these other external factors. And it plays out in the school. So they do a lot of training on how to work on that. One of the new initiatives we've been doing is a more prevention and intervention work as it relates to substance abuse, as it relates to suicide ideation, more training as it relates to conflict resolution. One of the female site coordinators I was talking to, a couple of them, a lot of it is around the young women and how they feel about themselves and how they interact with each other, right? And how it plays out in the school space. There's a lot of mental health things as it relates to who I am as a person, relationships with the opposite sex, or what that looks like and how it plays out in the school, because that causes some conflict as well. And they were giving me we don't have time to talk about all of the examples of that. Things that middle school and high school kids go through, but it just seems like it's so prevalent. It's like they're constantly having to have these conversations with these young people. And you add on the support of a school counselor or a social worker who are also in that space providing those supports. So it's a lot. Our site coordinators do a lot in that space, even though we're not clinical mental health professionals. There's a lot of that going on in terms of relation to a one-on-one or group setting with young people. In
a lot of these conversations, when we start talking about the challenges of youth today, We always talk about what's broken. Uh, but you work inside schools every day. What's working that we don't talk about enough?
That even though you may identify challenges with some of these young people, these young folks are amazing. They're smart, they're resilient. They have, people have maybe these ideas of how certain schools operate, especially public schools, and they're not necessarily true. If you're in the space, whether you're in it every day or you get a chance to dip in and out like I do, you understand that there are so many supports for these young folks from our school districts, from other organizations and our groups like us. So, and to see the change in a young person, I don't think we talk about that enough. And what I think we need to do a better job of as a system for supporting schools and young people is getting their voices a little bit more. I think we as adults are constantly, here's what you need to do. But getting the young people to say, here's what I need, here's how I need you to help us is just as important. So I think those are some positive things that our site coordinators try to draw out of these young folks. Well, what do you need? As opposed to, here's what I have, I'm going to put it on you like that. Yeah.
So first day of school, pretty much here.
Coming up, yes.
What's that energy like when your site coordinators walk back into their buildings for the first time at the beginning of the year?
We just finished our summer training.
Okay.
So we,
for the weary.
all of our site coordinators were here, and we did getting ourselves. Our theme this year was back to the basics.
Okay.
So back to the basics with our values and our impact and our data. So the energy, this is my second year here, the energy around the new year was really nice to see this year. It was a different energy coming back from the summer.
Okay.
So I think they're really excited about when they were collaborating, and I'm sitting kind of listening and kind of dipping in and out. They were very, hey, we can do this, and I have these resources, those resources. So I think they're very excited about what the new year holds.
Okay.
Yep.
For a kid who struggled last year, what does a good back to school experience look like? What has to be in place for a fresh start to actually feel like one for a kid?
Consistency. That's having, from a CIS perspective, knowing that Mr. Adero or Mr. Wilkos, who's my site coordinator, is going to be there again for me next year. And I've already established a relationship with that person. They're going to be there for me to, if I'm walking down the hallway, I can step into when I go into a school and I'm sitting down with a site coordinator in his or her office, there are kids coming in constantly. If we're touring the school, there's a kid, hey, miss this, Mr. That. Guess what, can we do, okay, time for you, I'll see you later, time to go to class, that type of thing. But you can see the relationship. I was in Cleveland in one of our schools. That site coordinator we sat down for maybe 5 minutes. She was constantly going around and moving. And it wasn't for my benefit. It's just how it is.
Right.
And I think for a young person, seeing that presence in all the spaces makes it that much of a better experience.
There's a lot of people quietly doing extraordinary things for kids. But who are some of the unsung heroes in the space that you'd want to shout out?
I'm always going to shout out our site coordinators. Okay. They are the hub. They are the heart of the work in the schools. But I definitely would shout out our school district partners, whether they're here locally or across the state. Our principals are huge advocates for what we're doing. The superintendents that we get a chance to connect with and I get a chance to talk about this work are huge. They see the value in how what we do is important. And then we have other partners that we're working with, whether it be for clothing or food or doing whole school initiatives around attendance, whether they're a funder or they're volunteering, they see the value of being connected to those schools. So I would shout them out as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. United Way talks a lot about success by third grade, how reading proficiency by the end of third grade is the single greatest predictor of high school graduation. Chronic absenteeism and reading proficiency are deeply connected. How do you think about that relationship between those two?
I think they're linked. Having those reading skills by a certain age or a certain grade has a profound impact on the engagement of those young people in the schools that we're working with. During my earlier years, when I was working in the schools and working with students specifically on reading, and seeing kind of heartbreaking seeing how students don't have those skills fifth, sixth, seventh grade. I worked a lot in elementary, second through about fifth. I did a lot of work, and the reading levels was just so poor. The comprehension, being able to read a paragraph with a nice flow to it, like many of us can do, seeing that where those gaps are is kind of heartbreaking to see. And doing the work that's contributing, even though if we're not doing the type of academic work that other organizations are, that's their main focus. The way that we're supporting that in the tutoring and the mentoring and the other academic supports that a site coordinator does, I think lends to the growth of reading comprehension and the importance of literacy and comprehension for young people is very, very important. So yeah, getting them to school is the biggest piece.
Right.
I mean, if you're not reading at home, if you have to do it in the school, you have to be at school. So we can support that way.
Adero, tell us a little bit more about the United Way Communities and Schools relationship.
Yeah, so we really appreciate the support that United Way provides to CIS. Programmatically, when you think about the success by third grade and then our work in the elementary school space, a lot of our attendance work is really connected to what you all are doing and getting students where they need to be by third grade. If you're looking at how getting students to come to school consistently and ready to learn, figuring out what those barriers are, what's going on at home and in their communities as to why they may not be on the right track to succeed by third grade and to meet the metrics and goals of the initiative, United Way's initiative. We fit into that space by really digging into what is going on with that young person. A lot of it is based off of our data and assessments, and it's a year-to-year thing. So it's not just we're figuring out what's happening this year. What happened last year? What was if they're entering first grade and they're not at a certain level, what are some of the reasons why? What is the data showing us? And then what are we looking at over the next couple of years? So having that consistent site coordinator in the school is key for that development, because it's not just a one-time thing, and there has to be this overarching strategy for first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then those transition periods from elementary to middle to high, right? So that's where I feel a lot of our work is in connection with what United Way is doing for the consistency of understanding what's going on and then having programming that's aligned for consistent attendance, academic engagement, school engagement, and then all the other supports that our site coordinators can bring to the table.
So Ohio has set a goal of cutting chronic absenteeism in half by 2029.
Yes.
That's clearly ambitious. What would actually have to be true for that to happen? And do you think that it's possible?
It's going to take a lot of investment, funding, and support of organizations. From a nonprofit standpoint, we're going to need a lot more resources to be able to be consistent, because it's hard to dip in and out of schools based off funding that is here one day and then gone the next. If we can be more consistent in those spaces for integrated student supports, whether it's in reading, other academics, social emotional development, attendance, because our site coordinators, that is our main piece of our work, is an attendance goal for every student that we work with.
Got it.
That takes resources and support to keep that consistency in the school.
So what comes first? You develop a relationship with the school, then you go out and raise the money in order to execute on that, or you raise the money first and then you develop the relationship with schools?
It happens at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens at the same time. A lot of our funding relationship with schools, we try to keep it balanced, 50-50. so that their dollars are supporting, and then we're raising dollars at the same time on our end to not put all the burden on the schools.
Got
We
it.
know their funding can be challenging, and our funding can be. We have to make sure that we're balancing that with the appropriate resources.
A lot of times on this show, we're talking about our changing city. It's a growing city. Demographics are shifting quickly. Poverty is moving around. How does the changing landscape of the Central Ohio region impact your work?
Absolutely. So when we connect with districts, when we're doing outreach or opportunities for supporting those students and families are becoming more and more needed. And they're seeing that they may not necessarily have all of the resources to support these new populations coming in, and looking for other supports for students who are coming into their respective districts, I think is a great opportunity for us to be a benefit to what those districts may need as it relates to those families who are experiencing those challenges in these outlying communities that traditionally you may think of as urban, but you're seeing them in other spaces where they may not have the capacity for resource development for their students and families. Even though they have student supports and other supports, it's a lot when districts are dealing with all of these different things.
I bet.
Yeah.
So you've had legislators come into schools and see your work firsthand. What happens in those visits, and what do people see that shifts something for them?
A lot of those visits are getting an opportunity to just interact with the site coordinator, understand what their day-to-day looks like. In some instances, we'll ask some students to also be part of those conversations so they can talk about how the site coordinator has impacted them during their educational experience. Right. And then hopefully get a chance to meet with the principal or any other leaders in the school to learn about the work.
So as we start to wrap things up here, let's talk about what our listeners can do, why it matters. For someone listening to this who's not a teacher or a social worker, what can they actually do that would make a real difference?
Absolutely. So there's volunteer opportunities. You can do things as it relates to, for example, packing student kits or hygiene items or those types of basic needs or academic needs, that type of thing. You can be involved there. There are opportunities to engage through our social media. And we also have funding opportunities as well. So if you go to our website, www.ciskids.org, it outlines all of the ways individuals can support. I would also say kind of staying in line and up to speed with how our districts are doing as it relates to resources that they are looking to build for their students as well. Understanding what's going on in that space is very key. So being in the know of what we're doing on the ground, how we're supporting schools, and what's happening in the water that we're swimming in as it relates to education.
So what would you want the kids of Columbus to know about how many people in this city are in their corner?
That's a great question. That I would want young people to know that your voice matters, your experience matters, your experience in our schools matter, and that there are adults, whether it be teachers, whether it's your clergy, whether it's your coaches, your school administrators, and groups like nonprofits like Communities in Schools that have your best interest at heart and want to see you develop and grow and thrive all the way through graduation and beyond. And the relationships that you're building with folks like CIS and others is designed to help you along that journey and that path, right?
Given everything you've described, everything you've seen, and everything you know, what gives you genuine hope about Columbus and its kids right now?
What gives me genuine hope is that so many folks care about the growth and development of our young people, and that the nonprofit community is so large here, and we do so many different things, that there are so many opportunities and activities for young folks to be involved with, whatever their interests are, that we can be those supports.
Resource-rich town.
Resource-rich town, yes.
Well, thank you, Adero. When a child misses school, it's almost never because no one cares. It's almost always because something else is harder than getting there. And the answer isn't to push harder on the child or the family. The answer is to surround them with a caring adult, the resources, and the message that they matter. This is what Communities in Schools does every single day, and it's what United Way of Central Ohio is committed to as well, making sure that when a child sits down in that classroom, they're ready to learn, and the path that got them there was not one they had to walk alone. Adero, thank you for showing up for students and families and for reminding all of us today that Columbus is a city full of people who are quietly and consistently doing extraordinary things for its children. To everyone listening, visit ciskids.org to learn more about Communities in Schools of Ohio and find out how to volunteer, donate, or get your school involved. And to visit liveunitedcentralohio.org to see how United Way is working alongside partners like CIS to build a Franklin County where every child has what they need to show up, stay, and succeed. Until next time, remember, there's not a problem Columbus can't fix.